I'm AJ Willoughby, and we're going to go right into it talking about radio and the power of the mangosteen and xanthones tonight. Dr. Tippelman, take it away.
Okay, thank you, AJ. Well, tonight you get to hear about my favorite topic. I could talk about the mangosteen all day, all night. Just give you a bit of background for those of you who perhaps didn't know or haven't heard the story about how it happened. Years ago, when I had been practicing medicine for about 12 years, I had an accident with drugs. It didn't happen to be, thank goodness, or I'd feel worse about it, the drugs that I prescribed, but the drugs that another doctor prescribed in extreme amounts led to the death, momentary death, because he wasn't really gone for more than 2 or 3 minutes before we got him back. He had him in the hospital. We had him in the hospital, and therefore were able to get the paddles and shock him and get him back very quickly, which was good because he was a very, very young man. He was only 26 years of age. But it shook me up enough to have me question whether first I was really doing no harm. And that's part of the Hippocratic oath, that when you practice medicine, the first thing is do no harm. And this young man died, and he died as a direct result of a high dose of medicine. There would have been no indication on autopsy that he had died as a result of a drug-drug interaction. But it was obviously something that brought me to my senses very early on. Now, we're talking more than 25 years ago. So at that time, it wasn't possible for doctors to sort of have a handheld device the way it is today, and to have so much more information now than we had back then concerning the potential interactions with various drugs, one drug competing against another for the receptors and going into either high or low supply depending on the problem that existed. So I started to look for things that I could use besides drugs that would be efficacious, but would not have the same degree of danger. And I began to look at various forms of what are called botanicals, things that come from plants and which have been used in most cases for a very long time, if not centuries, by large numbers of people, at times even up to millions of people. Because that kind of usage over that period of time is very reassuring, because it means that there's the best proof in the world that the things that these people are purchasing work, and secondly, that they aren't that harmful. So I started to use a large number of supplements that were in the form of pills and capsules, principally back then. And I came upon a substance that was neither pill nor capsule at that time. It was a liquid, and it was from South Asia, from Thailand specifically, and it was called the mangosteen. And I had this preparation, and I began to use it in my patients at the request of a good friend of mine who was involved in the discovery, manufacture, and bringing this product to market. And I used it for 1.5 years in my patients before it became available publicly. Now, it didn't have a name for that whole period of time. It only was known as something towards the end. But I was really very struck by the favorable effects that it had on a number of my patients, because I actually took my 24 worst patients. And when I say worst patients, patients aren't good or bad, but these were people that had chronic illnesses that I hadn't been able to help. They'd either had a reaction to the drugs which I had prescribed, or they hadn't gotten better on the drugs, or we just didn't have any real drug treatments for the problems that they did have. And these 24 patients used this. 4 of them were lost to follow-up because they didn't complete the questionnaire. that are required each week. But the rest, and that was a significant number in my mind, all had beneficial effects, regardless of the fact that their problems ran the full spectrum of the medical stuff that a family doctor would see. So I had people who had diabetes, I had people who had pain as the major problem. So I began to use this in my patients regularly. In fact, I replaced, if I remember correctly, 17 of the kind of common everyday drugs that I prescribed or recommended, some of which were available across the counter, with this single plant extract. And the people were doing very, very well. So when this became a commercial product, I agreed to not only turn a good deal of my attention towards researching it more deeply than had been the case, because at that point in time there was probably 40 papers or 50 papers that had been written about it, and now there's over 900. So you can imagine what has happened in that time as other doctors around the world have become interested in the advantages that the mangosteen carries for people who are suffering from various diseases. Now, look at one little aside here. We use the things that plants make through eating them or extracting them. The part of the mangosteen that we use for medicinal purposes is not the part that you eat. It, as a matter of fact, tastes so badly that it's a little bit of a miracle that we can put it into a product with only natural flavoring that really is as good as the core. And this is the product that I'm talking about. And this is the product that I hear the most about from all of the products that we have. Now, all the products we have are excellent products, but this is the one that generates the most interest. It is by far the product that sells the most. And I believe firmly that it is because of the mangosteen. Now, the mangosteen has been analyzed over the years, and there is one class of phytochemical in the mangosteen that is not found anyplace else in any plant that is commercially available. And so that's rather striking, and that's what has generated these 900 papers. There are five large classes of phytochemicals in the plant that are beneficial for human health. And there's lots of documentation. If you look, for example, under one of the catechins, which is a class of these elements that are in the plant, and the best known catechin is something called epigallocatechin gallate, and EGCG. If you look that up, you'll find more than 5,000 papers that talk about the benefits that it has in the human body. But most of that comes from the fact that it is the major active ingredient in green tea, which has a millennial history of being of benefit in human health. So the catechins are there, the proanthocyanins are there, the anthocyanins are there, the benzophenones are there. There are, as I say, 5 large categories, which is very unusual because most medicinal plants really have only 1, possibly 2 categories of beneficial things that are there. But the xanthones, which are in the mangosteen and which have characterized the research into the mangosteen, are unique to this plant. And them exactly way out in the world a very powerful antioxidant. Most of them have individual beneficial effects that make them slightly different from their brothers and sisters. And whereas there were only 40 xanthones identified and known when the mangosteen came to the market 40 years ago, we now have over 75 xanthones which have been identified. And they appear to work synergistically with each other. Those that have been studied have been shown to collaborate, if you want to think of it, in how the body uses them to produce balance when disease is present. And really, when you think about it, disease is nothing except major imbalance in the body, maybe an infection, and that's a little bit different. But these xanthones work together, and they not only work together, but they work with the other elements that are in there as well. So the catechins work with the xanthones. The xanthones work with the proanthocyanidins in things like urinary tract infections, for example. But the body, which is threatened by microbial infection, which is threatened by cancer, which is threatened by degenerative disease associated with aging and sometimes with genetics, these kinds of things are all of the same things that kill plants. And so plants have, over millennia, they have evolved defensive mechanisms that protect them against these same things that kill us. So it behooves us, when we can get them and they're in a form that we can take and are effectively absorbed by the body, it behooves us to use these elements to strengthen our body by making sure that the discrepancies or the deficiencies of diet, and the modern North American diet, for example, is highly deficient in a large number of things, even as fundamental as vitamins. So being able to get the things from plants that we need really does allow our body to be more successful at its task of maintaining health. And the stories that I have gotten about mangosteen, for example, and here with core and over the years as well, are very surprising. And inevitably, the medical practitioners who have patients who stumble upon the xanthones, either because someone talks to them about the mangosteen or they may use one of the products, the medical practitioners, I've had hundreds of calls literally over the years from doctors saying to me, what's in this stuff? What allows it to help with diabetes, for example? What allows it to help the body with arthritis and with inflammation? What is it? And of course, now that the studies have been done, I can answer them, and I can not only answer them, but say, here's an excellent paper in PubMed, and this is where doctors go to get their science. Why don't you go and read about mangosteen and diabetes? Because they're in that particular case, more than 25 excellent papers talking about mangosteen and diabetes. Now, again, I want to reiterate, we're not making claims that the mangosteen is going to cure diabetes. It doesn't. What it does do is allow the body to meet the challenges presented by diabetes much more effectively because it's got the ammunition to resist it, so to speak. It has the raw materials that it requires. And to talk to you a little bit about something that was interesting, 2 years ago in the fall, I went to China, and I went to talk about 4 cases that an oncologist who had been using mangosteen to help with the side effects of chemotherapy and to help also, he believed as well, in the actual treatment of the disease that he was treating. He had accumulated more than 100 cases where he felt that there was benefit. And I took 4 of these cases with me to China, and meeting with a group of doctors in not Beijing, but in another city, I was able to present these cases to them and stirred their interest. I subsequently got a chance to talk to people from a university called the Chinese Pharmaceutical University. And it's remarkable in that it has no counterpart anywhere in the world, because the Chinese have such a tremendous base of academics, a number of people in universities, for example, that they can specialize their universities. So they have a university with over 30,000 people studying nothing but pharmacology. So it's called the Chinese Pharmacological University. And I learned from talking with them and from reading some of the papers ago, when there was a research paper from China, it kind of looked like somebody just grabbed a Chinese food menu and threw it into Google Translate. You could hardly understand what was written. But now the papers that are coming out of China, because almost all the universities have paired themselves with English-speaking universities, the papers are impeccable. The language is extremely good. And the precision of the research indicates that it's not only here in North America that we can do excellent research, it can be done anywhere where the rules of science are properly followed. So this university is currently developing 2 and possibly 3 drugs from the mangosteen because they've seen what the plant will do by itself. And now they want to get that active, which they've identified, and they want to ramp it up and make it into a drug. Now, I think they're wrong because then you bring around all of the problems that come with drugs. Because if you can use the natural product without the problems that come with drugs, why wouldn't you do so? So I remain in the camp of people who recommend that medicine use both drugs and supplements, and that neither side of that a little bit of a split disparage each other by saying, no, you can't use drugs, they're just awful and nothing but awful. Or people who talk about supplements and say you can't use them, not only are they dangerous, but they don't work, etc., etc. So I am a doctor who prescribes drugs, but who also recommends supplements. And the supplement that I recommend without hesitation, because in 15 years, I have not been made aware of a single interaction, whether it's a drug-drug interaction or a food-drug interaction, or some problem that has taken anybody to a hospital as a result of having taken the mangosteen. And I was the person who was responsible for receiving those reports, and I did not ever have to make a report to the FDA. Is that extraordinary? Yes, it is, because I have been responsible for a large number of other supplements, and there have been times when reports have had to be made. So it's safe. It works. It works across the spectrum with all of the xanthones working together, and with the catechins, and with the proanthocyanins, and with the benzophenones, and the other things that are in there. It provides an elixir that few people who use it, who have imbalances, will not find beneficial effects. Now, is that remarkable? Yes, because there are a lot of drugs out on the market, for example, where fewer than 30% of people will respond favorably. And if you take the category as a comparison, if you take the category of drugs that are used to treat depression, you have to treat 10 people with the drugs before one person gets the effect that you're looking for. In other words, the desired effect. But you only have to treat 3 people with the drug before you give one of those 3 people a terrible side effect that is really, in many cases, life disrupting. So, is it worth looking at supplements when you have serious medical problems? Absolutely. Give your body everything that it requires in adequate amounts, and then sit back and watch the miracles that the body can work when it has what it needs to work in adequate amounts. So the mangosteen remains my favorite. I will follow it till I die, and maybe I'm not going to die because I actually take the mangosteen. My wife laughs at me. But the truth of the matter is, I have enormous faith in this fruit. I happen to believe in God, and I believe that this particular fruit was heaven sent, and that through inspiration from a spiritual realm, the Chinese, well, actually not the Chinese, but the Thai Buddhist monks who first brought this to the attention of people and began to use it as a multifaceted supplement. I believe that they didn't do that by accident. I think this is so remarkable. I've often said that when you look at the plant kingdom and you look at the elements in the plant kingdom, which in their natural form are able to help the body so tremendously, that the mangosteen stands alone right after it comes cannabis before. For example, in a supplemental form to be able to get the benefits of what nature can allow as far as anti-inflammatories, anti-infective, antifungal, and again, we're talking about inflammation, but every one of the diseases that happens inside your skull, whether you're talking about depression, anxiety, whether you're talking about the diseases that cause tremors or the diseases that cause seizures, all of these conditions are associated with inflammation of the brain. And if you can give your body something that it is looking for in order to reduce the risk of inflammation in the brain, you're going to see relief in symptoms that is due to the body having what it needs. I remember that I went to school one time to write an exam. And it was an exam that many thousands of people across the country were writing. You know what? They let you have a calculator in that exam, and I forgot my blasted calculator. And I failed. I was unable to perform because I did not have something that I needed. It wasn't that if I'd had the calculator, I wouldn't have been able to make the calculations. I'm very convinced that I could. In fact, subsequently I did. But when I got into that exam and realized that everybody had a calculator except Mr. Templeman, I knew that I was done. And so it's like that with your body. Your body knows what to do with the major part of the kinds of things that cause us what we call illnesses. And if you just give it the calculator, or in this case, the mangosteen, or many of the other wonderful things that come from nature, you will be amazed, literally amazed, at what your own body can do with the problems that you are suffering from. And I guess that's about all I could say, AJ.
Awesome. Well, we've heard so much about Coreo and mangosteen, and we're learning about the xanthones and how powerful these things are. For years, I've just referred to a xanthone, and I've said, oh, it is like a super antioxidant. But the truth is, it's a whole lot more than just an antioxidant.
That's true.
It's a molecule, cell kind of a thing, right?
Well, let's put it this way. The body uses it principally to reduce inflammation. Inflammation is at the basis of most of the major diseases that carry us away. All of the cardiovascular disease is not really a problem of cholesterol as much as it is inflammation. So we know that inflammation is basic. If you can give your body something that's going to reduce inflammation, why wouldn't you do it? But your body can use that same building block in a different construction. It can use it for something to, I've got grandkids pushing stuff around in the other room, but you can use it, the body can use it to prevent infections. Well, hold on, there I go, I made a claim, didn't mean to do that. It can use it to make it harder for the infective challenges that are in our environment to overwhelm our immune system. It can strengthen the immune system. We're allowed to say that. And I have no question of its tremendous value.
Wonderful. So here we have this super molecule cell antioxidant, everything here that synergistically, when you have one, it does all this stuff. And then when you have another, all of a sudden, now this one may do something. Maybe this one helps with your gut. I don't know, and this one helps with your head. And then when you put them together, not only do they do that, but then they also help with your nose. And then you got another one that helps with the ear. I don't know. I mean, they synergistically how they do that. And then it just multiplies. And that's why we're seeing so many results from this.
That's
and
correct.
Then that, along with all the other fancy $20 words that we talk about with the catechisms and the Cadillacs and the Lincolns, and you add that all together, and we've got a super major product that really is getting results.
Absolutely.
Well, Dr. Templeman,
Better results in many cases than drugs.
And in fact, we're hearing about results that even here, just, even on this call, some of the testimonies that we've been having, it's been results as like, wow, I didn't realize
Well,
that.
yeah, 3 weeks ago when you were rolling around on a cruise, we talked with a lady who had this incredible eczema that just could not be controlled and had been to all of the specialists that he could possibly find, had tried all of the home remedies, and lo and behold, he uses the mangosteen and woof. Remarkable, remarkable, and very, very satisfying for me to know that this company M is keeping the mangosteen in the public eye in the best possible form that it can be, and putting plenty of other good things with it to strengthen the immune system.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, we've got a testimonial that is going to be on here in a few weeks that Dr. Timlin, I think this one's going to blow your mind when we start talking about it. I'll give you a heads up as we get closer so you can be like, not just totally blown away, but my mind was blown when I heard this testimony today, and all the things that are going on with this is just phenomenal news, phenomenal stuff. So folks, here's the thing. Try it. If you have something, you're struggling with, aches or pains or whatever, try it and see what it does. And then you can talk about the fact that here's what I found it helped me with. Yeah. And you can tell people your story, because your story makes a big difference, and it really helps other people to see how it can help change their life, and you can help change other people's lives with it. A lot of people say, oh, but I'm afraid to tell my friends about it because I don't want them to think that I'm trying to push something. Here's the thing. You've got something so powerful that it is changing lives. Why would you hold this as a secret and say, well, I don't want to tell you about it. I don't want to tell you about something that could change your life because you might think I'm trying to push it on you. That's just ridiculous. It just is. So, Dr. Templeman, thank you so much. Appreciate it. So, coming up next week here, throughout the week, we've got calls going on throughout the week. Go to empowerplan.com/calendar, and you'll see a list of the calls. But I will let you know that tomorrow evening, just so you have a heads up, we will not be having the regular Tuesday night call from corporate. Will not be this week or next week because we're getting ready for convention and there's so much going on. So the Tuesday night business call tomorrow night and also next Tuesday night will not be happening. But the rest of the calls throughout the week, we've got calls on Thursday with Cat Barnes and the Cat Call. We've got calls on Saturday morning with Dennis and Sue Ligon and the business call there. Then we also have calls on Monday late mornings with Andy Willoughby, my father, that get you started throughout the week. So go check it out. Make sure that you're getting the information you need. And we'll continue being here every Monday night for you, giving you the updates on the product and what's going on. And boy, we're going to have a whole lot to be talking about next month. It's going to you got to come to convention. I'm just going to say that. You need to make sure you're at convention. You're not going to want to miss. There's going to be so many announcements, so many things. It's going to be so exciting. Get to convention. Be in Las Vegas and for convention. And I know there's a lot of stuff going to be happening. Anything else you want to say, Dr. Templeman?
No, AJ, you said it all. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great night. We'll talk to you all next week.